Hi guys, welcome to this vlog. Good to be here, good to be chatting, and as you will have seen from the thumbnail or the title, maybe both, this is going to be a critical assessment of my physique in the off season, so maybe not the best time to do it, but still I think this will be insightful for people that are aware of the sport, if we can call it a sport of bodybuilding. That's a separate debate. Aware of bodybuilding as a art form on stage when you are being assessed critically on a criteria, because obviously there's many ways we could assess my physique, and it's good to have an objective, I guess it's actually a subjective criteria, but on paper it looks objective, right? But everyone has their own subjective feelings to how well you do fit that criteria. I feel pretty qualified to do this, considering I've competed in over 3 seasons, over a dozen shows. I've had lots of clients compete on stage, seen their video footage, where they place against other competitors, and I've judged a handful of shows by now and feel very well equipped of understanding the criteria and what the judges are specifically looking for. Like I said, it is subjective, however, and also I might not be as well placed as someone else, and I would love someone else's view on my physique. And in fact, feel free to give your opinions on my physique, primarily focused on the criteria that I've outlined or will outline in a minute, because if you're just giving opinions that aren't, then it's not super helpful. But I mean, I'm not going to be able to stop you if you want to anyway. You can comment away. And I'm not necessarily going to take them all on board, of course, because I will take the ones that I think maybe have valid input, but I think I know myself pretty well. But as always, like I said, it would be nice to get someone else's thoughts on my own thoughts, because sometimes you think something's maybe strong or weak and you're just in your own head on it. So I guess the first thing that we're going to do here is actually just review the criteria. Here we have the WNBF UK. They have their criteria outlined on the website, and as a competitor, as a coach, I always advise my competitors to look at the criteria that their specific federation have outlined, and I like to look at it as well, so that I know exactly what we're trying to bring to stage, because this is what the judges should be taught to judge to, and have education and coaching surrounding it, because different federations might want different things. I'm going over bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding with the WNBF. Other federations might have slightly different criteria. Now, they tend to have a standard, like bodybuilding as a whole probably will follow a very similar format to what we have here, but some federations might want a softer or harder or different poses, different even attire, things like this that also come into it. So I always recommend people check. So with the rounds, you may not be aware, there are like 2 main things that are being judged: symmetry and muscularity. The first thing that's judged through the relaxed poses, so you've got your front, side, rear, side, like back to front, relaxed poses. So that is your symmetry round. So that is where you get a score for symmetry. And in fact, on the scorecard, you want to have as low a score as possible, because if you're getting 1s, that means the judges have you first. They have you winning the symmetry round. So the symmetry round comes through first. And as it says here, symmetry encompasses overall balance and proportions of the physique top to bottom, basically describing like a definition of symmetry. The overall aesthetic of the physique is considered here, including the presentation of the athlete. So of course, your posing is going to impact this. I don't think it's like if you've got a smile or haven't got a smile, that's going to necessarily impact it. It might do. You might draw a judge's eye, but it won't have like it shouldn't have a direct influence on this score, but it's more so, can you pose well? Can you show your overall balance and proportions and symmetry? Because you can also manipulate your poses to present that more. And that's something I definitely have to do, as we're going to see as we come to it. My symmetry is not a strong point. This is where I'm trying to not lose ground. So athletes will execute the 4-quarter turns. Excessive twisting, flexing, posing in this round may be addressed by the head judge. So twist as much as you can. The head judge will call you out if it's too much. But yeah, you have to contort yourself in some ways. But yeah, I doubt that you're going to get called up on too much. Yeah, you'd probably have to do something really out there to get called up on it. I have never seen it, actually. So with these, I basically went over all the quarter turns, so we can actually have a look at that. So something I want to mention here that isn't included, but is absolutely a factor, is symmetry. You can almost think of symmetry as X-frame. That is kind of what the judges are very much looking for, is like, do you have a nice X-frame? Do you have a small waist, wide shoulders, sweeping quads? This is what they're looking for. That front pose, you're holding the majority of the time that you're on stage. And to me, people say shows are won from the back. I say they're won from the front in that symmetry pose, because it just counts for so much. Because also, if you have a good symmetry, front symmetry that is, small waist, wide shoulders, wide clavicles, sweeping quads, like your front double is going to look great. Your front lat spread is going to look great. Most people look competitive from the side. Now, some people look stronger than others, but most people look competitive. And then from the rear, wide shoulders, small waist, like sweeping quads. Like it's all going to probably come together. And I think it stands you ahead. Now, I don't want to say it as an excuse, but a lot of symmetry, it comes down to genetics to a certain extent. What is your bone structure? And then how are those muscles put on you, if that makes sense. So I'm actually just, you might even find this interesting. I'm just standing relaxed. It might give you some perspective on what a difference posing makes for a physique here. So for perspective, I am here at about 189 pounds. That's nearly 90 kilos. I think it's like 88 kilos or something, somewhere around that. And that for me is my stage weight is anything from 170 to 175, or at least it was this past season. So it's not too far from stage weight, but comfortably above it, of course. Over 10 pounds above stage weight, comfortably. So I'm going to get into my front relax, which for me, I would say is it's one of two of my weakest poses here. I'm not going to talk too much about how I get into it. You're just going to see me hit it. If I could show you what this looked like in 2014, maybe I am good enough to drop in an image here up and show you what it looked like in 2014. This has come on leaps and bounds, but I don't have, I'd say my shoulder width is average. I'd say my waist is slightly above average. I have actually got quite a big bone structure, not a small dainty one. I have big, thick wrists, thick ankles, a wider waist, just not super broad shoulders. And so I don't have a really nice taper, but you can see here, I'm trying to get this kind of X through the knee to the shoulder, from, again, the knee to the shoulder. I'm trying to get my quads to sweep here. I'm shoving my hips back to turn on the hip flexors, the sartorius, but also to anything further away from the camera, the judges, is going to look smaller. Anything nearer is going to look bigger. So I kind of lean almost forward with my upper body and I push my hips back. So yeah, I mean, critically, this might look okay on my own, but I tell you, if you put someone who has a fantastic symmetry next to me, it starts not looking great. Something else I've come to realize for myself, and this is evident, you will see it, is my front shots don't look that great, but my rear shots are very strong, actually. At least I'm always talking from my perspective, of course, because my rear shots, my rib cage doesn't get in the way, but I have a big rib cage. I don't know if that somehow explains why I have good cardiovascular fitness, and I'm a good runner and like decent, like semi-long distance runner. But yeah, my lats just don't flare out as much as I would like them to from the front, and that makes me look quite up and down. And especially because I have like a long torso and quite short legs, I have quite a space here where it's just like there's not a whole lot going on. I also don't have the best quads. My quads do not sweep nicely. They kind of just jut out and they're just big. I have a big like teardrop muscle there by my knee, but like that's where when I train, I get the biggest pumps, biggest kind of disruption through that part of my quad, and I don't feel that much for the outside, for the vastus lateralis. I wish I could somehow specifically target that. There's nothing to indicate we necessarily can. But yeah, so basically that's why my focus for the longest time in my off season has been lats, so I can get more width, because again, I'm assessing this as my weakest shot. Has been focus quads to just, if I can't get it more sweepy, I can just make them chunkier, I can make them bigger, and then delts, specifically lateral delts, to make my shoulders more capped, to give me that impression of more width. And I think I'm getting there. So let's go through. I thought this is going to play. Here we go. My side. Hopefully I don't hold this one too long. There we go. So from the side, I think I do pretty well. This is definitely stronger than my front. The shoulder kind of clavicle width doesn't matter so much from the side, and of course you just get the big impression of my arms. I think my legs are very reasonable. My glutes are a pretty strong point, and yeah, there's just less to go wrong in this pose. I think your structure is going to hurt you less in this pose. So then from the rear, again, I'm pretty happy with how this looks. There's not much I would add to it. Again, I think it's that sense of it looks better than my front because my rib cage isn't getting in the way. It's actually around the front, so my lats can really show themselves off. But again, the side shots they're stronger for me because the front shots aren't so strong. And I have a good amount of muscle mass on my physique. And we can look through now the muscularity / conditioning. So this is like muscle mass, but also can we see that muscle mass? And this is something, again, it's a little bit of a subjective thing where I've been judging competitors where clearly someone has a lot of muscle mass, but they are way off from a conditioning perspective. And then it's on that judge's it's somewhat subjective to that judge whether or not they're going to judge someone like that more harshly, and how harshly, I think there's a level of condition that you kind of need for stage to be classed as judgeable in a way. If you're off-season level of condition, like I am here in these, and you're taking that to stage, that's just, you're never going to be looked at seriously because you can't even decipher what's fat from muscle. So you need to bring a level of condition. But there are times where someone can be very conditioned, clearly the most conditioned, but they're not necessarily going to win if they can't back that up with muscle mass. So this is where it can be a bit of a balancing act. And the ideal position to be in is as muscular as possible with as much as condition as possible, which is a tough balance to make because there can be times where to bring in certain muscle groups, in terms of condition, you sacrifice fullness or size within other muscles. For a lot of male competitors, it's like trying to bring in their glutes, their hamstrings, and maybe sacrifice some of their upper body muscle mass. Bit better for the men's physique competitors, depending on how they hold their body fat, because they can literally just be like, cool, I can have fat legs so long as my upper body's shredded. The ideal position to be in is have enough time so you can get all the fat off and then bring fullness through, whether that's eating into shows or through a very well calculated peak week. So anyway, muscularity and conditioning as per the WNBF UK. The athlete's muscle mass and conditioning / definition will be judged. Proportions and balance in muscularity poses are considered. So that kind of symmetry perspective that I spoke about before is still going to play a role into this. Like if you have skinny old little legs and a huge upper body, that's still going to score you down in this round. Conditioning encompasses the appearance of low body fat levels, across the physique. Athletes will execute a series of 8 mandatory poses. Competitors must perform all mandatory poses in a timely manner. Judges are looking for the complete package, all parts of the physique, not just one body part at a time. Athletes will perform only the poses requested by the head judge. Cool. So yeah, that kind of gives you an understanding of what they're looking for here, is that combination of the two, muscularity and condition. So we can get into that round. So this is something that I tweaked, and big thanks to Alberto Nunez for kind of giving me the inspiration to do this tweak, to hit it a little bit more classic. Because for me, again, if I hit this straight on, actually, you're going to see me hit it straight on in a minute. When you see me hit it straight on, you will see how weak it can look. But this is where the muscularity round is where I can really show off. Because again, I have a good amount of muscle. I absolutely do have a good amount of muscle on my frame, and I can contort my body, and I can show the art of bodybuilding through my posing. And so I can manipulate things like, okay, I don't have sweeping quads, so let's shift my hips a little bit. I have a wide waist, so let's shift my hips to the side, so you can see my foot's off to the side, my left foot's off to the side, my hips are following through with that, and then I'm twisting at the waist to bring my upper body round. Can't really do this on a front lat spread or a front relaxed by any means. I did try, and it just doesn't quite work. So I actually think this pose, and I get to show off a bit of my glutes at the back, which when they're in, it's pretty cool. And I think some of this kind of lat specific work I've been doing, where I've been really trying to get that width, has been paying off, because you can start even to see these poke round on my front double here. And of course, having my arms in this position, if they're weak, it really shows off that they're weak. But because they're strong, it really gives this like a very powerful look, I think. So I wouldn't ever say this is like a strong shot for me, but when you hear front double bicep is quite literally right there, and they're my strongest muscle group, despite not really trying. But that's sometimes how this bodybuilding thing works. So I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is the pose for me, and when I hit it well, it's going to outdo people who have better symmetry than me, but similar like muscularity, or maybe less muscularity, less condition than me. And yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So you're going to see me hit this from the front here. And now it really shows off what I talk about in terms of like my rib cage through here. At least this is my assessment of this, that my rib cage is kind of through here. Like even I hit a vacuum, it's not going to solve this for me. And it makes me just have this big gap in my physique where it's like, if you chopped me down like 30 centimeters, it would look incredible. In fact, if someone photoshopped that, like I think I'd look really decent, like up and down, but this just makes me look so long. It emphasizes my waist, which is wide. I don't have a tiny waist, and it just unfortunately doesn't complement my physique at all. This has come on leaps and bounds again. Like I used to have like no meat, particularly under here, under my armpits. So it's just, yeah, it's not great. And then my front lat spread is similarly not great. But again, I've been working on it, and part of that has been working on just this upper shelf in general. Upper shelf being kind of like delts, upper chest, just to build some thickness up here. The thicker I can be up here, the wider I can be through my lats. Like my arms certainly emphasize this shot. Like it just draws the eye up here and hopefully takes you away from what is a gaping hole in the middle of my physique, and then coming through to sweep through the quads. I might have to try and, I'm going to want to play with this pose a little bit and change it. And in fact, when you're in your off season, like you have fat on your physique, and so your poses will likely change as you drop body fat. And this may end up looking a bit better. I say this about my side shots. My side shots generally actually look better as I get leaner. And unfortunately, some of my front shots look better when I'm actually bigger. But we'll see. But I'm not a fan of this shot. I want to work on it and make it better. But these are my money shots in terms of everything I can bring, because they really get me to show off arms. If you've got a strong pair of arms, I have a decent set of glutes, like legs in general. I think I've managed to bring those up so they look decent in this shot. My chest, it's not massively strong, but it's certainly not weak. But again, it's just a good set of arms can really, really help you on these, I feel like. And I'm really pleased with how they look. And also, having worked on my abs for the longest time has allowed them to come through thicker and show in these shots so that they have no holes in them. I don't see my side shots really having any holes in them. And again, it's nice to be able to say, like, my side shots are strong. My rear shots, I feel like, are strong. I feel like some of my shows, plenty of my shows, in fact, I won from the rear here. Like, this is very X-framey when you consider, like, symmetry, X-frame, woof, like, it comes straight through. And again, I think this is because this kind of meat on the lat kind of gets hidden on the front with my rib cage there. And so here, it looks very much like I come through and, like, there is no, like, big gaping hole in the middle here. But from the front, there is that. And yeah, it's disappointing. But I always say this is like, bodybuilding is a bit like top trumps. You have some strengths, you have some weaknesses, then you have to top everything up and see how things lay in the end. I will say I hold my body fat pretty well in off season, where I hold quite a bit of it on my back here. And I think it probably looks thicker than it maybe is when I remove that body fat. My back actually gets really quite flat when I start dieting too. But I'm really pleased, like hamstring detail, a bit of glute detail coming through, like especially hamstrings, that can be a very stubborn area, even for me. So yeah, I think these look significantly better than they ever have in the past, and I'm not comfortable saying they're weak. My weaker shots are definitely the front relaxed and the front lat spread. This used to be a very weak shot for me, but I think actually having brought up my lats a lot has allowed for some more width up top so that I kind of come through and it can look a little bit more aesthetic, and particularly when I can bias myself to hitting more so the obliques than necessarily hitting it front on. So like more of these shots, I think it can look all right. And especially because I've also abs and thigh, right? The thighs are right in there. And I think because I've really worked on my legs, they've come up much more than they have. And then most muscular, I don't think these count a ton, to be honest. I think the symmetry and the other poses that have come before this really count much more than necessarily this. But if two people are pretty close, this might pinch it for you. And I think the most muscular poses are good ones for me because they involve a lot of arms and just general muscularity. And I think I have a good amount of muscularity now as a middleweight competitor or a middle height competitor, depending on kind of how the general competitions are doing it. Is there anything else I was going to say with these? No, not particularly. But like I can hit virtually every most muscular pose and I can hold my own with them. So I'm quite happy with that. So guys, hopefully you've enjoyed that kind of critical assessment of my physique. As I said, like I think I have like a good amount of like balance and symmetry in regards to like muscle mass and symmetry across my physique, upper, lower, like strengths, weaknesses. I don't think there's anything that's outstandingly weak on my physique. I think I hold everything pretty well, but I score down on symmetry in regards to having that X frame, wide shoulders, small waist, sweeping quads. It's never going to be a strength of mine. So I can do what I can to make it better by emphasizing cap delts, wider lats, larger thighs in general. But that's all I can really do, and then manipulate my poses as best I can, with my weakest shot being that front relaxed front lat spread. In my opinion, the rest of my poses are pretty decent, with my back and side shots being very strong. And like, yeah, I'm comfortable saying them very strong. That almost feels like I shouldn't say that, but I would say they're very strong. I think they're very competitive, especially in amateur ranks where I'm at, where I would love to be able to go pro. I don't know if I'll ever go pro. It's out of my hands completely. All I can do is make the best job I possibly can to be able to get there and enjoy the process, which is absolutely what I'm going to do. So if you have any feedback on that, if you enjoyed it, let me know. If you have any questions, anything like that, let me know. As always, it's always great to have you here. And this is the sort of thing I can do for my clients. Like I look at their physiques, I assess them, strengths, weaknesses, what should we work on? It gives us off-season kind of goals to achieve. And it also helps when we're in prep to be able to manipulate poses to bring about what the judges are specifically looking for, because they are looking for specific things, and you can play the cards in your favor. Even if you have some weaknesses, you can kind of play around with that a little bit, like I did on my front double bicep. So guys, hope you enjoyed this. And yeah, if you need help with it, you know, we're online coaches here. That is what we do. You can always apply for coaching. That'll be linked in the description. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, drop me a comment, all that good stuff. I'll catch you in the next one.